We can go live now to Washington and our worldly political procedures correspondent, Will Parker, who's there. Will, what can you tell us?
Well, Ben, what we're being told here is that the Secretary of Defense is due here behind me any minute now. We were originally told that it would be 2 o'clock, but that's now been revised outwards by another 5 minutes or so. But, of course, that all depends on when he actually appears.
Now, of course, there's been a lot of speculation about what Mr. Rumsfeld is actually going to announce today. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, Ben, I have to say that speculation here in Washington has been at least as much to do with what Mr. Rumsfeld isn't going to say as it has been about what he might or might not say when he arrives any minute now behind me.
Its authors say that the problem of obesity is currently costing the NHS £16 billion a day.
Walk down any street in Britain today, like this one I'm walking down now, and you're surrounded by wobbling fat.
We know, for instance, that he isn't going to say anything about what we originally thought he was going to talk about. But then again, I think we knew that already. That's just not his style.
Will, what more can you tell us about what we thought he was going to say?
Ben, that's an interesting one. What I can tell you is that Mr. Rumsfeld is very much his own man.
Is Madonna dead? More on that story.
Stay with us.
Coming up
Shortly.
Stay tuned.
Moments ago, we thought we saw some movement through that door, which I don't think you can quite see behind me. But in fact, it turned out to be another man. What I can tell you, Ben, is that Mr. Rumsfeld is a man in no mood to mince his words, no matter what words he decides to choose to use, or indeed not use. And of course, we'll know that very shortly indeed.
And in the meantime, Will, what are people saying there as they wait for Mr. Rumsfeld to appear behind you about the possible significance of what he will have said, assuming, of course, that he has said it?
Well, Ben, that's very interesting, because if indeed he...
Tennis now.
Oh, yeah? Well, I got 2 words for you.
A lot of speculation, and much of it, I have to say, speculation. Not only about the form of the words that Mr. Rumsfeld will use when he appears behind me any minute now, but also about the precise order in which he may or may not use them.
And, Will, what more do we know about what you mean by that?
What we have to remind ourselves is that...
You're watching PBS News with Adam
Lockwood and Francis
Walsh.
More later.
What more do you know about what you can tell us about that, Will?
Ben, that's an interesting one. What I can tell you about what I can tell you is that one of the things people are starting to say here is that...
Different perspective.
Will, how much more do you know about what you can tell us?
Well, Ben, not much more than you...
Baker's Crisps 11 will...
Don't have to look at or listen to it anymore. But even then, simply knowing you're in the same cinema where it's on will make you want to chew off your own film.
Real sense here that this is a man who may say almost anything at all. Now, if that is how it plays out, and of course we'll know that in a very few number of moments from now, but if it is...
It's 22 days now since the group...
Of mistiness just hanging on in some sub-Saharan...
I can see movement in the corridor behind me here. I don't know if you can see it, but it looks as if... Yes, it's him. Here he is now, flanked by his aides, the United States Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld.
We return now to our earlier news of that reported incident on board a Union Air 747
passenger aircraft.